I just wanted to briefly introduce yourself and explain who we are and what's going on with this webinar. We are SALTO Green, so we are the resource center for the Erasmus Plus program, meaning we are here to support the work of national agencies all over Europe in facilitating the green transition of the program. That means trying to lower the carbon footprint, lower the ecological impact, and also improve the handprint, improve the education, the sharing of good practices, the new habits, and the transformation of hopefully education institutions and participants all over Europe. And we briefly serve 54 agencies over 33 countries in 24 languages. And there's only 4 of us in this team. So we're trying our best, but something we found that could help is having webinars like this, where we can highlight a good practice, a good method, an interesting idea, something that works well for the green transition in Europe. So I hope you find this interesting and that it can give you, again, things to improve your own project or your own practices or develop new ideas. And we'll, throughout this webinar, cover first as testimony by a green contact point. The green contact points are the relay of our action. There are one in each Erasmus Plus agency all over Europe. There's one in your country. And Satiye Sarigos is here to tell us about a very, very cool green travel that she's done between Germany and Malta, which is not easy because, as you probably know already, Malta is an island. So there is no train going straight to Malta. And then we'll go to the heart of the project, the heart of the webinar today, which is the Sustainable Erasmus Plus project. And Salomé Dermati is going to tell us about the work that they have done with this project, specifically on the idea of what do we learn when we do green travel. It's always the sense of making the travel, the destination, making the journey part of the mobility, part of the education and the experience. And so trying to highlight what's going on when we try to take the train or the bus or find ways to travel that are not just taking a flight from one point to the other. And so again, thank you everybody for all of this. You have the chats available if you want to share your I don't know, your opinion. If you have questions, we can answer them at the end of the webinar. If you have comment as well, and again, if you want to share your own experiences, maybe your own project, that's very interesting for all of us. I'm adding some resources in the chat if you want to find out more about our project. I'm going to start recording as well. And if you want to, if you need to, you have subtitles available in your home language. So they're automated subtitles, unfortunately. So there might be a few mistakes, but hopefully they can help you follow what's going on a bit better. And I'll start by introducing Satiye, who's going to be, again, talking to us about her green travel experience. Satiye, go ahead.
Thank you very much, and Louise. Maybe you can share the presentation. Don't worry, my presentation is just photos I will share with you, and you can go directly to the map, Google Map. So hello, everybody. It's great to be with you today, and I'm very happy that I can share with you my green travel experience from Germany to Malta. I hope everybody can hear me well. I think it's so like this. I don't, and Louise, you can hear me, yeah? Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, I did this journey in March because I had 2 business appointments there, a TCA, a partner meet, and a partner meeting of the LTA Sustainability and Greening. And as I'm determined on a private basis not to fly to any distances except to Turkey, where my roots are from, and it is sometimes necessary to fly, for instance, for funerals. But otherwise, I really try not to fly anywhere. And to Malta, it was a very big challenge for me because, of course, we wanted to have these meetings and the TCA there, sharing and participating there, and at the same time knowing it is not going to be easy to go there. And as the program guide allows since 2026 ferries as green travel if combined with trains, I thought maybe this is a good idea to asked my director if I could do kind of a learning activity, trying to come to travel to a remote area of Europe, because for us Germans it's quite easy to travel green. We are in Central Europe, and most distances are well to do with the train, but it's of course something different if you need to come to an island. My director agreed on my proposal, and he had two conditions. One condition was that I report about my experience on this journey to other NAs and GCPs and other interested ones, as I'm doing now today. And the second was that this is not going to be an example for others in our national agency to do same travels or comparable trips, green trips to other remote areas, out of two reasons. One is the costs, and I will come back to the costs later. And secondly, the time you need to travel, and it takes you a really long time. In this map, you see how the route was. It is by Google Maps by car, but it was kind of the same route by train. It was more than 2,000 kilometers, and it took me to Valletta via Siegburg. Siegburg is a very close place to Bonn, where my journey started, and the first stop was Freiburg. After that, I was in Bologna. From Bologna, in Milano. From Milano, I traveled by train to Bologna. In Bologna, I took the night train to Syracuse, and from Syracuse, I took another train to Pozzallo, and from Pozzallo, I took the ferry to Malta. Pozzallo, the distance between Pozzallo and Malta is the shortest distance you can take by ferry. There are also longer ferry trips, but I really wanted to have the shortest distance, so most of the journey is by the train. So wondering how what did this journey with me, with my mindset? And I think SET has described it on the project website very well: transformative experience itself. I would describe it in three motives. One of the main experiences was, it was like a meditation for me, this journey, especially the longest part, the night train from Bologna to Syracuse. It took me 16 hours. At the end, it was 18 hours. And I really enjoyed waking up in the morning, seeing the seaside. And after that, it was like all the time, my mind was changing from experiences I had as a child, because as a child, when I was young, my parents traveled with us to Turkey by train, and I really hated it. It was so boring. This time, it was like a meditation. I realized that I was getting calm. I was like seeing this landscape, and it did something with me, but I can't describe it. But maybe really with the words, it was like a transformation for me. So this is one of the most outstriking experiences I did on a personal way. The second thing was meeting people on the way. For instance, from on the way to Milano, I met a young woman. Her name was Milana, and it showed out that she's boxing. And I was like, "Oh, you don't look like a boxer." And I really realized how superficial we think about people on the first sight. And she was very nice. She excused my being superficial and explained me the different weights by boxing, and her plan is to participate at the Olympic Games, not the next time, but the over next time. And it was really lovely to talk with her and to meet somebody like her on the way. The second person, it's not it's just by accident, but it's also again a woman. Her name is Sandra Parmesan, and I met Sandra Parmesan in Pozzallo. It was the International World Women's Day, and we were discussing about women's rights. And at the end, she said to me, "Don't fight for women's right, but live it." And I must say, I'm up to now, I'm thinking about this sentence and her advice. It was lovely to meet her. And the third thing I would like to share with you is the moment of arriving somewhere. When I arrived in Malta, unfortunately, I was very ill because on the day when the meeting started, I had a bad flu. And it was my first time in Malta, but compared to other experiences, for instance, flying to Istanbul. In Istanbul, I arrive mostly by plane, and it takes me 2 or 3 days until I have the feeling of having arrived. This time in Malta, I was on a foreign place. I haven't been before. I was very ill. I needed to go to the doctors, but I somehow felt comfortable and at home. And I think this is because it took me kilometer by kilometer, hour by hour, and day by day, because the travel was almost 3.5 days until I arrived in Malta. So this was also a very outstriking moment to sense this, that arriving somewhere differs completely if you are quickly there flying over coming distances on a very fast speed, or coming there relaxed, slow by slow, and then having a completely other feeling how it feels to be somewhere. Of course, interesting for you is the footprint. According to a very simplified calculation using the German Environment Agency's emissions calculator, traveling by train and ferry causes about 38 kilograms of emissions. A combination of train and plane would have caused about 390 kilograms of emissions, meaning it's almost 9 times. Of course, as I couldn't do the way back by green travel because I was really very ill. I had to stay a few days to be able to fly back. So I had to fly back, but still, I think the comparison says everything, that there is a huge difference. On an economical level, the balance is really bad because my travel was about 60% more expensive than flying. In this is calculated that I booked really flexible tickets because I wanted to be prepared for delays and for circumstances you can't anticipate. If I would have bought some cheap tickets, which with more fixed conditions, the difference would have been only 20%. But still, at the end, it is a lot of money you have to pay for green travel. And the other very important aspect is the time. It took me 3.5 days. Of course, you could have been more faster than me, but as I was planning some time to have to be prepared everything on any unplanned circumstances, but still you need time. And the 3.5 days was split in 1.5 days working days, and 2 days were of my weekend. As I privately do not have any obligations, it was fine for me to travel to be on the way at the weekend. But of course, we have to think about, is this realistic for employees to put a lot of free time in business journeys? And the last aspect I would like to share with you is the aspect of safety. So I felt very safe on this journey all the time, except arriving in Pozzallo. I arrived very late in Pozzallo, and it was dark, and I was unfamiliar with this station, and there were no people there. There was nothing really to be scared of, but as I was unfamiliar with this place, I thought, okay, this doesn't feel good. At the stations in Bologna, Milano, it was no problem because everywhere there are a lot of people. But if you are in an area where people, it's not on the streets in the evening because it's a small place. So this is also something which is of course important. Last point is the luggage. I messed up with my luggage. I had too many things with me. My luggage was too heavy to be transported from train to train. My personal conclusion is it is possible to also to travel green to remote areas in Europe, but it takes a lot of time, it costs a lot, and therefore I'm wondering if it is really realistic. Maybe in the future, but at the time being, I'm not sure about that. At the same time, in Malta, I met a participant at the TCA from Germany who is traveling most of the time like this. He has been to Estonia, to Ireland, and he was also going back from Malta to Germany by train. And he told me that he is always booking the cheapest ticket, so he's taking the stress that connections don't work. And I asked him, so are you going to continue? And he said he loves this, but maybe next time to Ireland, he will also fly. For me, personally, I truly enjoyed this journey, even though I was ill afterwards. And right now I have the feeling I would love to do all my travels like this, but I'm not sure if the feeling will be the same after 5 or 6 journeys. So maybe I'm coming to this to the end, but maybe you can show just the other photos. It's just photos of the journey from different places, and you could go to the one with the people on the photo. No, yes, here, the woman with the short hair, gray hair. This is Sandra Parmesan. Thank you very much for listening. And now I'm very curious what Salome is going to explain us and show
Yeah,
us.
thank you for sharing your experience, Satiye. And I think
Thank you.
Salome is going to tell us more about how we can encourage green travel and like how we can turn this impression that green travel is impactful into actual a framework. So Salome, I'll give you the floor.
Excellent. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much for this indeed very, very interesting and inspiring story. I think it was perfect to start and kick off this lunchtime webinar. And thanks to all the participants that have joined this webinar. I see quite a lot of you, so this is very, very exciting. As you know, I'm Salomé Dermati. I work for the European University Foundation. I'm based in Brussels and I'm a policy and research officer. And indeed, the reason I've been invited to this webinar is because I am also coordinating an Erasmus Plus funded Key Action 2 project, the Sustainable Erasmus Plus Travel Project. And this provides kind of the context of my contribution today. So yes, I think now you can follow the presentation very nicely indeed. So I have summarized some of the main details relating to the project, just to again give you a bit of an overview of what we have worked on. It was a 2-year-long project. Now in May 2026, we have sadly but proudly reached the last month of the project. And indeed, the coordinating institution is the EUF. But in our consortium, we have also the Erasmus Student Network and 3 higher education institutions. So that is Charles University, University of Porto, and the University of Zurich. And we have also been complemented by 2 associate partners, that is Erasmus by Train and Generation Climate Europe, 2 student-led volunteer-based organizations that are also fighting for green travel and for more environmental sustainable behaviors in higher education and more broadly. I include also the website of the project where you can, of course, find more information about it. In terms of our long-term aspiration, in a nutshell, we can say that we have really tried to improve the opportunities of higher education students to engage in more sustainable, friendly, and sustainable and environmentally friendly habits during their mobility, and indeed also contribute to this mindset shift with a view of portraying the trip to the mobility destination as a transformative experience in itself. And of course, some details related to the program policy context, of course, that supported this initiative, of course, coming from the European Green Deal, the European Climate Law, then later on the Council recommendations on learning for environmental sustainability, and also the horizontal green priority in the Erasmus Plus program. When it comes to the 3 main objectives, the first part of the project focused on supporting the transition to a more sustainable Erasmus Plus program by researching the main features, reasoning, habits, challenges behind the choice of students when deciding which mode of transport to use to reach their destination. So this was the first objective, kind of corresponding to the first content-based work package, and also corresponding with the phase before the mobility. So this is where we started the project, understanding what happens when students are deciding to go on mobility, and also which mode of transport to use, and what are the different interventions or support that we can implement to persuade them to choose a more eco-friendly mode of transport. And then the second main objective or pillar or work package of the project had to do with indeed promoting the journey as something that can be more educational and also transformative. And then we had a very dynamic campaign that we ran in the last year, and also platform, the Sustainable Erasmus Travel platform that I will present a bit later as well. And all of these efforts and actions very much reflected on what happens during the mobility phase. And then lastly, but not least, we had a third main objective or pillar that had to do with visualizing and recognizing the added value of green travel for students by developing this repository and also a prototype for universities to recognize green competences fostered through green travel. So this last objective or pillar, again, kind of overlapped or echoed what happens after the mobility, the last phase of the mobility. So this is a bit, again, in a summarized overview, the main objectives and goals of the project. Now, when we go and talk about the specific results and tangible outcomes or outputs of the project, again, this is a 2-year project. So in the first part of the project, we, again, very much focused on the behaviors and motives and habits of students. So we have produced 10 fact sheets prepared by the University of Zurich that looked at the environmental impact and also the travel time of different travel modes for the 5 main routes taken from 10 popular Erasmus Plus destinations. And in addition to that, we have also made available a modular template that you can use to create your own fact sheets with different graphs and maps at an institutional or country level, depending on the different, most popular destinations in your case. In parallel to this, we also have produced 3 connectivity reports. So those connectivity reports specifically show the different connections or alternative routes with a bus or a train or night train, and also different possible stopovers and interesting sites. Starting from the 3 cities that are from the consortium, so that is Porto, Prague, and Zurich, to their respective top 5 mobility destinations. And then lastly, we also, of course, conducted a student survey with more than 2,000 answers. And we also analyzed and summarized these results in this environmental sustainability in Erasmus Plus student mobility report. Here you can see a screenshot of the cover of the connectivity reports on the one hand, and then the fact sheets that, as I said before, are already available on our website. But I think now we come to the more interesting part and some other results of the project. So we have, on the one hand, the repository. So we have this interactive board game. I will show you in a second what it looks like. But basically, it summarizes and presents the 16 transversal competences that students can exercise or practice or enhance when traveling green to and from their mobility destination. In addition to this, of course, we have uploaded and made available the methodological report that I will again also briefly present in a second. And then another result of the project is this desk research that we conducted that is called Green Skills and the Future of Employability, Aligning Higher Education with Labor Market Trends. So in a nutshell, what this desk research wanted to do is, if we had a Venn diagram and we wanted to find the sweet spot between green competences, employability, higher education, and internationalization, what would that be? And indeed, we came to very nice conclusions there that the development of these competences can also have positive effect for the employability prospects of those students. And then the latest result of the SET project has been this dossier on recognition mechanisms of sustainable travel for higher education institutions, which discusses different flexible measures to acknowledge and also validate competences fostered through green travel. So we're gonna now look into the details of the repository in this dossier. So for the repository, the first phase, the first step was, of course, doing some desk research and understanding the conceptual framework for it. So for this, of course, we resorted to several European competence frameworks. I have included some examples in the slides. So we started by looking into LiveComp, the Green Comp, DigComp, ESCO, and other frameworks. And then in order to complement it with this link to employability and some trends for the future of the labor market, we also looked at the Future of Jobs report 2023 by the World Economic Forum, and also the OECD report for the Future of Education and Skills 2030. Another source of inspiration and research and findings also was another Key Action 2 project, actually, the Erasmus Skills project, that also developed a self-assessment tool for students by understanding and identifying the different learning outcomes that they can gain through this mobility, and also a methodology on supporting academics in integrating this into their curricula. So again, in a nutshell, this is where we started the project, by understanding what are the different competences, what are competences also, and maybe here I should maybe clarify that competences is an umbrella term that encompasses skills, knowledge, and attitudes. And this is also the term that we have adopted. Another way of referring to competences has been soft skills. So what we understand by being empathetic, being respectful, having good communication skills, etc. But again, through our research, we came to find that competences is the most appropriate term that really presents what we want to convey within this project and these results. So again, the combination of different practical skills, but also attitudes, values, motivations, and knowledge, and the ability to apply this knowledge through these different skills. The second phase, when compiling and putting together this repository, was again this compilation and taxonomies. So colleagues from Porto University and also the EUF, we came together and we identified 19 competences in the beginning based on their perceived relevance and potential to be fulfilled through green travel. So again, green travel was the specific context of these competences. So we did not look at what's happening in more formal education settings in a classroom or with a bit more guidance, but we specifically focus on this context of what happens when a student decides to go on mobility and to travel green, all the preparation and the planning leading up to it, to the actual implementation and execution of the green travel, and also all the reflections that can happen after the green trip. So again, all these competencies were kind of summarized and organized in a list, and we had different descriptions, the source of the competence framework, where it came from, and also justification why we think this matches a green travel and their respective aspects. Of course, there were several rounds of internal validation and brainstorming and further clarifications with the other project partners. But then the next step that also came as a recommendation from another project partner was to match these 19 competences with the 5 pillars of the UNESCO Education for Sustainable Education released in 2019, to provide, again, a more concrete structure into this repository. Not, again, with the purpose of producing another framework necessarily, but to make it easier and more legible for future readers. So what are the 5 pillars that we used? These are the ones that you see on the slide, of course. We have learning to be together, learning to know, to do, learning to know, and learning to transform ourselves and the society. The next step after this first taxonomy was to have roundtable discussions with students that had specifically a former Erasmus Plus mobility experience and also green travel experience. So we used this experience and these students to really discuss with them and have their reflections on what they think made the more sense with this repository, what were the top competences that they feel like they really can or have developed versus what are the competences that are least acknowledged or they feel less ownership of, and also to get some other recommendations and improvements. So we had this, again, these focus groups for further validation. We identified specific areas of improvement, and then we released the second and final version with now 16 instead of 19 competences because some of them were merged in August of last year. And now I'm gonna quickly present some of them. I know that we don't have a lot of time, so I will just highlight some examples here. But as I said, all of this you can find on the website of the project. So we have under the pillar of learning to be, we have emotional regulation, self-motivation, planning, and responsibility. Also curiosity, environmental values, and interpersonal communication. Under the second pillar of learning to be together, we have intercultural awareness and European values. Under learning to do, we have individual initiative, online search, and evaluating data, information, and digital content. For learning to know, we have critical thinking as a competence. And then lastly, for learning to transform ourselves and society, we have identified adaptability or flexibility, evaluating the environmental impact of personal behavior, and also adopting ways to reduce negative impact of consumption. When it comes to the visual representation of this repository, we have this interactive board game. This is a screenshot, so it's not interactive, but trust me, it is normally interactive. So we use this idea and this template of a board game to introduce these topics. So what you will see is basically this. It very much follows the typical design of a board game that I think all of us are familiar with. So you start by selecting a token or mobile student. So we have, again, some examples of names or students on the right side. And then you have a digital dice that normally if you click on it, it rolls and it gives you a number. And the idea is that you go through each of the tiles. And when you stop on a tile, a pop-up window will appear with a competence that you have or you can enhance or practice in this green travel experience. So you will see at the very top in bold and in all caps the name of the competence, then a short description. Underneath, it is the pillar of education to which it corresponds, and then a more detailed description of how this competence relates to the green travel experience. And at the very top, the very bottom, sorry, we have the source for this competence. So this is just an example of a competence that we highlighted in this interactive board game. Now, I also want to quickly talk about the dossier for universities because we also were discussing and we had in plan for this project of not only giving this repository out as a way of introducing the topic of green travel and green competencies to students, but also we wanted to be a bit more ambitious and invite universities to also reflect on this and see how they can also further recognize and contribute to the promotion of green travel and green competences for the students. So we wanted to find ways, again, for the universities to validate and recognize these competences for their students. So we started in late 2025 by preparing different guidelines and questions to collect feedback from staff members from the partner universities. And these staff members had specific expertise either in sustainability, accreditation, or internationalization or international relations. Then earlier this year, we had again several rounds of internal brainstorming and trying to conceptualize and understand what are the most feasible and meaningful ways for universities to recognize green skills. And then in April, we had further discussion and feedback with other partners. And then now in May, we have finally published this deliverable. So what are the different ways that we are proposing for universities to recognize green competences? I think a first disclaimer to make here is that these are different mechanisms that we recommend. They can be used, independently or in combination, but they should also be understood as a scale or as a spectrum ranging from least to more formal, ranging from simple reflection of the students to a maximalist approach that is much more and to so we have on one assessment questionnaires, very tool is just for fun. And in this dossier, you will also see a template that we have included for the assessment. Next step is digital certificates or credentials, something that is a bit more personalized, match or synergies with a more visible way that they can normal way. Be of course paired with information before the green travel and also after the green travel experience. So indeed, yes, something much more structured in the format of a unit course. We also have included several recommendations for universities in this dossier. So again, not having too much time to go over all of them, but indeed we want to promote and we encourage universities to have and to secure high-level support for green travel recognition, and indeed to define the scope, the objectives of what green travel means for them, and what are the different recognition methods that are more appropriate for them to implement. And again, if there is a decision to implement one of these measures or something else, always having an opportunity to monitor this implementation and the impact for improvement for the future. When it comes to recommendations for policymakers, we have put forward several of them, such as introducing the recognition of transversal competences fostered through green travel, specifically and explicitly in the Erasmus Plus program guide, but also the European Charter for Higher Education and also the Erasmus Plus Student Charter that do feature, have some reference to environmentalism or environmental habits and goals, but we believe that there could be a stronger push and putting green travel and green competences in the center of this discussion. Going into a bit of the summary of this, the development of green competences. So I have included in this presentation some examples of these measures. So on the one hand, we want you and we want to keep supporting the narrative shift of conceptualizing or reconceptualizing green travel and what it can mean for different people beyond the immediate environmental impact, for personal growth, personal development, and also for employability, because there is potential there. Secondly, we want to, of course, equip beneficiaries and stakeholders with tools and knowledge. So what we are doing now, I think, in a way, and what the SALTO Green team has been doing for some time now, is to providing, sharing, disseminating good practices, templates, and other examples. In our case, with relation to the recognition of green competences that are coming from informal and non-formal learning settings. Another recommendation is to offer capacity building for international relations officers. So that could be, for example, organizing and mainstreaming training opportunities on specifically embedding green practices in mobility management processes. And then lastly, but not least, incentivize and fund similar initiatives by showcasing and supporting different piloting projects, such as the SET project, but of course there's much more than this. For example, on identifying, recognizing, and validating green competencies. Another even though the project is ending soon, we have 3 more deliverables, 3 more outputs that are going to be published by the end of the month. And therefore, I bring your attention to the QR code where you can scan and sign to our mailing list so that you can receive these 3 guidelines and policy recommendations very, very soon. So we have, again, some policy recommendations for promoting and enabling a green Erasmus Plus mobility, but we also have other guidelines for other stakeholders, such as universities, student organizations, and local authorities on most effectively communicating about green travel in different ways, in different channels, and publish the Sustainable Erasmus Travel Report, which is going to summarize and present the campaign that we did last year for, again, promoting green travel to students, the different messages, the different outcomes, the different tips that we have, and also visuals that can be replicated in the future. Some of the main takeaways that I had from my presentation and what I wanted to close with is that green travel can indeed foster a range of complementary and transversal competence for mobile students. And these competences can be recognized in a more or less institutional way as an informal learning opportunity for mobile students. Interested stakeholders such as ourselves, be it universities, network organizations, policymakers, etc., we can support the mindset and narrative shift for awareness with awareness-raising measures. And then lastly but not least, we really believe that green travel and green competences can and should be explicitly promoted in Erasmus Plus program guiding materials. That's it for my presentation. I really hoped that some of these topics sparked some interesting thoughts or inspiration. I know that I covered a lot of ground in a short amount of time, but I'm very curious to get any questions in the last 5 or 10 minutes that we have.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Salomé. That was really interesting. And I think there was already some discussions in the chat and the in the Q&A session. So if you want to ask your question in the chat, if you want to raise your hand, and I can give you the authorization to set your mic so you can ask your question, feel free to do that. We had a question about Sarah that was very broad, but she asked, how do you perceive time, space, security, budget could be addressed and tackled? And we already have some beginning of an answer. If you go into the Q&A module, you can see the answers. Satiye started giving some idea that we need to change the systematic conditions of the train, and that has to be done at the institutional level of making the train cheaper, more accessible. But I just wanted to jump in and share some resources as well. And then as Salomé, I will let you give your opinion as well. European Commission is working on facilitating or improving passengers' rights for train. So it's not there yet, but hopefully we're going to have some better regulation to protect passengers when they're traveling by train, as we already have with planes. And if you are concerned about security or a bit anxious, or your participants, your students are, a very good resource is GoToRail. And it's a nonprofit that allows participants to connect before the travel. So you can find out who is also traveling to your destination city, who's going to be part of your university, connect with them, travel with them, and it's very reassuring for people. And maybe you could do this as well professionally, or we could have this maybe a version in the Erasmus Plus project where you can find other people from Erasmus Plus and travel with them. Maybe that's coming up in the coming years. But Salomé, do you have something else to add again about this question of like, how do we tackle the issues of time, of space, of security, of budget?
Yes, excellent questions and excellent also answers from your side. Thank you for covering indeed some of those already. And I think, again, if we talk about safety, rights, indeed, there's a lot of positive developments coming from the Commission in the last days. So I know that you have been also sharing these links with this new package, one ticket package, one journey, one ticket package from the Commission. So we are also very much following closely those developments. And I think also the initiative that you mentioned, GoToRail, is also coming as an answer to this, especially for the students who are, again, maybe a more vulnerable group, younger, and maybe have been facing some uncertainties. So traveling in a group or traveling with other people who have done this before is a great solution already. And I forgot now what I wanted to say before. So yes, about time, actually, I wanted to add something else that I think is also what the SET have been trying to do, is really shifting the conversation, the narrative, and the words, the language that we use around traveling in general. But specifically, I think there could be a very strong case be made for Erasmus Plus students who are, again, facing different challenges, maybe in terms of money when they want to travel green, but maybe they have a bit more time, more flexibility, and less responsibilities to take several days to travel green. And I think, again, in a nutshell, one of the messages that we want to convey here is that traveling and also your mobility does not have to start as soon as you reach your destination. It can start way earlier than that. And there's a lot of things that you can learn. And there's a lot of ways that you can grow as a student and as a citizen and as an Erasmus Plus also ambassador, again, even before reaching your destination. The point for us and the point for this campaign and this project has never been to get there as fast as possible. And it's true that we live in a very fast-paced societies, have to make commitments and compromises and even sacrifices in some cases. But traveling, and especially ground travel and grid travel, can be a wonderful experience to take back time. And we also believe that the time that you use to travel green, be it with a long train or a bus, is not lost time. It can be creative, it can be productive. You can use it to work, to study, to read, to draw, to listen to music, to podcast, to do some other activities, but also to talk to your fellow companions if you're traveling with friends, or to meet other passengers as well. So I think, again, the concept of time and what we make of time and how do we perceive time, lost time versus productive or leisure time, I think this whole conversation very much fits into this as well. And again, I think we also are in a privileged position to keep pushing and to keep advocating for green travel, not as a lost time, not something that is complex and cumbersome, but as something that really opens up doors for you, for the students. By physically crossing boundaries, you can also have different perceptions of what it means to be European, what it means to live in Europe, to have European citizenship as well, to see the landscape change, the language change, the culture change. So it can be indeed very meaningful and valuable and not lost because you took more time to get there.
Okay, thank you so much for this. I think that's a very big conversation again, and that's something we try to advocate as well as saying like, sure, if you're flying for 2 hours, that seems shorter, but you have also a lot of time to get to the airport, to wait at the airport on the security line, and this is a bit of wasted time versus time that you could be just working, having a nap, and just looking at the countries that you're traveling and experiencing Europe as well. So very, very connected with this idea. Um, and Philippa is sharing a resource as well with the Canny Network, which also really much working with educational mobility and trying to green educational mobilities. So that's an interesting resource for this as well. We are reaching the end of the webinar, but we still have a few minutes. If you want to ask a question, raise your hand or write it in the chat. In the meantime, as I mentioned briefly, but I should have mentioned it at the start of the webinar, you will receive this presentation with some information and resources, and you can find the replay as well on our YouTube channel in the coming days. You are welcome to share this replay with anyone that you think would be interested. And if you want to join our next lunchtime webinars, the next one is going to be in August, and I'm not sure the topic yet, but it could be something to do with European preparedness or something to do with Green Comp and the building of the Green Comp framework. So if that is interesting to you, you can either follow us on LinkedIn or subscribe to the newsletter, to the SALTO Green newsletter, to keep informed about this and about all the resources that we produce as well.